Let's all scream. Let's all scream. Scream, scream, let's all scream.
Hi everyone and welcome to Let's All Scream. I'm Shehlaa Ali
I'm Saleh Al Braik.
And I'm Hassan Al Marashi.
and this is our second episode.
I think we are very excited that we're recording this because first and foremost, that's consistency. And some of you actually asked what is the flow that we're going to follow. And I think we're going to do this weekly, inshallah. So every Tuesday,
Yeah.
that's
every
the
Tuesday
goal.
morning, the goal is to have it uploaded for you guys.
And we were very happy with the feedback from the first episode. So thank you all so much for listening. I think last I checked, we have almost 200 listeners
Oh, that's
on one platform. And it's not about numbers, but like for us, I don't think we were going to get more than 10.
In the first episode, I was like,
Yeah.
I wonder if we're ever going to find weirdos like us.
I literally thought it would just be
us.
Us
listening
replaying it?
to our
Yeah.
when he came to me, Hassan came to me and he said, I don't know how many followers or listeners we had on YouTube. And I'm like, okay, but 3 of them were me because
Were me.
I opened it 3
You
times.
kept on refreshing.
Yeah. No, I was trying to send the link to friends and
Yeah.
then I had
So
to
when you open it,
I would open it.
One thing I think we wanted to mention was about a lot of people also asked about where it's going to be available on. So just to, again, talk about this. So we're supposed to be literally available everywhere. The only reason why we're delayed in terms of the Apple Store at the moment. And by the way, Apple Store also relates to a few of the other ones that you guys have asked as well.
like Pocket Cast and
Yes.
a few others.
So the reason is because it's our first episode. When you're creating a profile and you're uploading the first one, it goes under a 24 to 48 hour approval rate.
Actually, it can go up to 2 weeks
Okay.
for approval, but they say usually within 5 business days it should be resolved.
Okay.
So we're just waiting on that.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, if you're listening to it, then you found it somewhere. So
I mean, for me, the easiest thing was SoundCloud. I managed to
Yeah.
play it in my
Yeah.
car, and going back a step, listening to it in the car on the
How
day that
was
it
that?
came out, it was weird.
Yeah.
You know, I
I
think
don't think you ever get used to hearing the sound of your own voice.
you know what
See-
though? Actually, I was telling people that the weirdest thing was listening to your own voice, and the fact that
Yeah.
when I do send a voice note, the worst thing I do is
playing it
replay it.
back,
But
yeah.
I actually got used to it on the podcast.
That's
like
the
I'm like,
thing,
okay, that's my
Yeah.
sound.
I
Fine,
edit-
I'm good with it.
Yeah, because I edit the podcasts, and
I'm sorry.
no, it's okay.
So
I
you
forgive
hear your own
So
voice
I
and
hear,
ours over
I
and
hear
over.
them, yeah, like literally by the time I was finished, I sat down for like good 2 to 3 hours, and by the time I was done, I'm like, our voices are normal by now. Like this is nothing, especially hearing my own voice. I used to
Yeah.
hate hearing my voice, but that's actually something that's interesting that I didn't realize
Yeah, I
until
didn't
now.
realize it wouldn't phase me anymore.
Yeah,
One thing that we wanted to mention as well as and Shehlaa did mention it in the start is we just wanted to thank you guys so much for the
Yeah.
for the kind words that you guys have been telling us and sharing with us, whether it was personal, whether it was on WhatsApp, whether it was even on the channel
Or
itself,
Instagram,
on
yeah.
Instagram. Honestly, it was very supportive because what we wanted to do was we wanted to relate to people, we wanted to connect with people, and we wanted someone or a listener to basically feel that kind of emotional and mental relief after listening to our podcast. So the fact that it did just that and it was getting kind of that organic
Yeah, and
Yeah.
for it to achieve that from the first podcast was like really incredible. I didn't expect that. A lot of the comments were like, I felt like I was saying with friends,
Yeah.
or I felt I was like there with you in the conversation, which is exactly the goal that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah,
So,
and they kept forwarding me the messages that we were getting because. So I don't know if anyone knows this, any of the listeners, but I'm not on social media currently. I'm basically just taking a small break. I decided to just take a break and get off of Instagram and Facebook. I don't know for how long.
You had mentioned that in the
last episode, yeah.
episodes. What made you decide to do
to
that?
do it. To be honest, it was mainly just after the last episode, I started thinking about that, and when we were venting and talking about it, it made me I remembered how I felt last time when I took the break.
Yeah.
and this time I felt like the anxiety was more.
Yeah.
So when I did take the break the first 2 days, I was like, what am I doing? Like, I got through an entire month last time. I don't see that happening. But by now, I'm like,
Yeah.
ugh, I needed
Can
that.
it's good that you're doing that, and that's good for you. But can I just mention something that I'm experiencing? Honestly, the past week, I've actually been seeing a bit of positivity on social media.
Oh,
God
really?
forbid. But I mean, in the sense
The
of
one moment I leave.
yeah, and but I mean in the sense of like obviously at this point of time when this podcast comes out, I don't know if that's the same case, but everyone's kind of at home with their family and with their loved ones, so everything on social media is kind of like, here's recipes to cook at home, here's a workout to do at
Yeah.
home, and here's what I'm doing, spending time at home. And it's actually so nice to see, like
Yeah.
I'm looking at my loved ones and my colleagues and even people that I follow or don't follow, and I'm seeing everyone kind of spending time together. It's actually really nice to see.
Really
And
nice.
everyone's
Yeah.
giving each other tips like, oh, if you're at home and your kids are at
Yeah.
home and they're doing the e-learning, here's some cool educational games that you can give
Yeah.
them and stuff like that. So I think it's actually it's a good thing. I enjoyed my week on social media.
I must say though, because it's not on social media, but it's still like on WhatsApp groups and everything. Is I am seeing that same love, and that same like affection and humanity. I feel like is coming back in the sense of on WhatsApp. I have like the groups I was saying. We you see like people like panicking or talking or whatever, and they're like, the other one's like, oh, it's
down.
okay,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all right, come over or something like
I think
that.
people
and-
are becoming their own support systems and
Yeah.
support units. One thing that I think is a blessing in disguise is the fact that this never happens, where the entire world is basically telling you it's okay to slow
Down.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, like you always had that book you wanted to read, the show that you wanted to start, the movie you never got to watch, or
Yeah.
even the memories that you take for granted. I think that's one of the good, I think, things
The
that came out
outcomes.
of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely agree.
Like, speaking of memories, you just brought something to my mind. So today I was Shehlaa was getting ready, and I was feeding the baby like a snack, and so I gave her blackberries, which everyone knows like stains like crazy.
Yeah.
And so I was handing them to her so she can feed herself. And she's 9 months old, by the way.
Backtracking, sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you. I started baby led weaning, for those who know what that is. And so
Eh,
she
huh?
is
What?
basically it's
What?
baby led weaning.
Okay.
Basically, you give the baby the
Lead.
no. Oh my god, imagine.
I would have believed you. I was like, what?
Oh yeah, he would have probably. But no, you basically give them
You
the
let the
vegetables
baby
and the
lead
fruits.
the
The-
weaning off of feeding from the mom.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So you put the food in front of her and she has to pick it up
Okay.
and eat it herself.
Yeah.
So I give her non-staining vegetables. I don't
Or
really
fruits, yeah.
or fruits. I don't give her blackberries out of all of them.
And here
So-
comes Hassan.
So
There you
yeah,
go.
so literally she's on her her what do you call it? Her high chair. And I put the berries in front of her, and she just grabs them, squeezes them. It drips all over her brand new onesie, and then she like smears it all over her face. Like probably 2% of the berries actually go in her mouth. Yeah. And so then Shehlaa comes into the kitchen and downstairs, and I just hear, Hassan, what have you done? And the baby is like
Literally,
covered.
yeah.
She's covered.
I can imagine the look on her face, and she's just like,
Yeah, she was having the time of her life.
Yeah.
But bringing it back to my point is, I'm usually at work during the day, so the fact that
Yeah.
I was home and able to do that, it was such a nice, simple memory
that you'll
that
keep.
we created.
Yeah. No, on my other end of that is I got that 10 minutes of a break where usually I don't.
Yeah.
And I was able to go upstairs. I was able to just wash up, pray. And then
Yeah.
I come downstairs and I see my child literally
Covered.
covered in blackberry juice.
I mean,
And I'm like,
But you
God.
laughed. Don't,
Oh
you
yeah,
have
okay,
to
sure.
admit.
I laughed after
Would
I
it
had
be-
to clean her up, and after I had to clean up the high chair, and after I had to. Oh, don't get me started.
Well, actually, going into the topic that I wanted to discuss,
Okay.
speaking about the fact that the world is kind of telling us to stop and us taking a break and kind of taking things slow, it's funny because I, as a person, I am, and you know me, and you guys know
You're
me.
very go.
I'm very I'm
Yeah.
on the go. I'm
Yeah.
always on the go. I'm up at 6 a.m. I'm at work
Even
at
on
7
a
a.m.
weekend.
Even on a weekend, I'm up
Yeah.
at 6 a.m. I'm at work at 7 a.m. I have a strict gym schedule. I actually pencil in people a week in advance. And that's just how I am structured. And the reason why I'm like this is because running, having a full-time job, but then also having businesses on the side, for me, I need structure. Otherwise, I won't be able to focus. And so sometimes what happens is I get overwhelmed. It's weird coming from someone who says that, I work in many different industries and alhamdulillah, I'm healthy and I have, loved ones around me. But it's funny that sometimes I get a moment where I crash. And I'm only now taking it for, or appreciating it more, the fact that it's slowed down. It's just because when the world is just moving so fast and going at that beat, I
Yeah.
follow through.
Yeah.
And then what happens is I get this crash moment of who am I? What did I achieve? What am I doing? And it's probably just because of a tiny slip up. I
Yeah.
may have missed a gym appointment. I may have missed a meeting. I may have done a wrong decision at work or in my own businesses. And when I have that slip up, because I'm running on literally 100, what happens is I trip and then I don't know how to get back up. And then that affects me going forward.
Yeah.
Like it actually, and you guys have
Yeah.
seen, I go down this spiral of when whether it's anxiety, whether you feel like this overwhelming emotion of failure, and I'm not gonna
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And it's funny because in your rights, like the rational side of you
Yeah.
is like you just made a mistake, or
Yeah.
you were
Or
running.
like it's all gonna be okay.
It's all going to be
but
like, but then there's that irrational side where it's like, no,
Panic,
I'm
worry.
panic,
Yeah.
worry,
Yeah.
and crashing, and it's so it's literally like I can see both sides kind of trying
Yeah.
to find a middle, and then it takes me a couple of like a day or two
Yeah.
to get back on my feet. But now I'm appreciating the fact that I'm not running and I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm beating, to my own drum, and the world, I have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
We have nowhere to go. So I'm doing a lot of the things that I always wanted to do before
Yeah.
that I didn't get the chance to just because
Yeah,
I wasn't letting
I'm-
myself do it.
There's a term for that, and they call it burnout. And I don't know if that's exactly the right term for it, but like you know, there's a reason there's a term for it.
Yeah.
Is because we're all moving so fast, and sometimes we just get overwhelmed, and we don't take the time to stop
And to take a break.
And so dealing with that pressure can sometimes be very difficult, and we find ourselves getting overwhelmed, getting tired, getting like in a rut.
Yeah.
And it can take us time to get out of that.
Just to walk you through it, and I don't know if anyone out there relates. So this is how it happens, right? So you're having a normal day, one of your very regular days, and then you have everything structured in your mind, and then all of a sudden, let's say you're there at a meeting,
Yeah.
and the person texts you and says, oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it, while you're in that meeting. You already sat, you already went there, you already spent all that energy and that focus. And in
Yeah.
your mind, you were like, your head was in the game. You knew
Yeah.
exactly what you were going to do, what you were going to say. And the thing is, every hour after that, you already knew what you were going to do or where you were going to be. So because
You
that
had it
person,
planned,
yeah.
basically.
So
Yeah.
because that person either
Cancels.
cancels or even shows up late, disturbs the rhythm of the entire day or throws
Yeah.
me off my groove. What then happens subconsciously, and I noticed this, is I'm not myself, as in I feel like, okay, so I'm not at my best game, and then I have this like sabotaging voice inside, and I'm like, okay, so why did they cancel, and why couldn't they be there, and was it me? Should I have prevented it? Was there a way for me to prevent it? Should I have, put an extra half hour just in case there was going to be a cancellation? And then it just kind of trickles into, okay, so what was that meeting anyway important? Did I need that? What am I doing here? What is it supposed to be? So it's like
A lot of negative self-talk.
yeah, and negative self-talk.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you kind of question yourself. And by the way, it doesn't have to be a meeting. It could be
Anything.
anything.
I noticed that with you a lot, and I mean, I don't. It's not that I don't relate to this. I can no, I can understand it, but I don't go through this per se. But I know that for you, whenever things don't go exactly according to plan, it really throws you off, and it really. And I think,
Big
I mean,
time.
actually, I take that back. I do relate to that in the sense of like, I think we both have this element of being control freaks.
Yeah.
And not in the sense that we feel the need to control people around us. It's we feel like we want to control our own situations and our own destinies and stuff.
Saleh, going off of what you were just saying about self-doubt, especially when I moved to Dubai, I found myself, so I've always been around family and friends that I've known and grew up with.
Yeah.
Only when I moved to Dubai did I literally move by myself with no one else.
Just for reference, she moved here. You moved when obviously
When
because
we
of
got
marriage.
married.
When we got
Yeah.
married, I wasn't living here before that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was the first time that I ever experienced that, and I found myself having that same voice that you're talking about in the back of my head. And with every social gathering and with every conversation I have with someone new, or even someone I've already talked to once or twice,
But being in like a new family.
in a new family, I felt, not that I was ever judged, but I felt like that voice in my head was judging my
of,
own
like,
self.
Do
Yeah.
you belong?
Yes,
That kind of thing.
exactly.
How was it? Do you mind if I ask? Like, how was it when you had? Because just for the listeners, listening. So you got married, you moved to Dubai,
Yeah.
and you moved in with Hassan,
With Hassan.
who is living with his family.
father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how was that experience for you?
It was quite not shock. Yeah, it was shocking, but not in that crazy sense that the word shocking brings, but like it was more of me trying to get out of my comfort zone and trying to adjust
Yeah.
and
Funny enough, someone did ask on the comments to talk about how do you step back in or back out and into your comfort zone,
into your comfort
and
zone.
how do you deal with that? So how did you? So it's
That's
funny that
actually-
you mentioned it right now.
Okay, so with me, it was, I would say I would go back home after like most gatherings, and I would sit there and be like, okay, but I said this at this second, and I said this, and this is the way I said it, and I would literally replay that same sentence that I
critique
said
yourself?
and critique myself, and then I would, let's say a few days pass, and that same moment will come back, and I'm like, what am I talking about?
Yeah. But why would that be? Like, why would you?
I think it's just my self-doubt.
Yeah.
My own self-critique.
Yeah.
And
you're, it's so surprising when we have the self-doubt, no one else is thinking it but us.
exactly.
Yeah.
You know, like no one pays it any attention
Like
or
I
mind.
remember, especially when you first moved, like everyone was like, "Oh, Hassan, your wife is so sweet. She's so nice."
And in my head, I was thinking, "Oh my God, they're gonna think I'm a freak, and they're gonna think I'm just like a loner." Because I would be
literally,
very
like,
shy.
A lot of family members were
Which
like,
is
"Oh,
normal,
my-"
by the way, when you just move into a new country, new family, new
But
everything.
see, being younger and being inexperienced in that, I never knew that that's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that my own thoughts, and I'd wait for him to go to work, and then I would just sit there and be like, and I remember at the time I was studying,
Yeah.
and I would be like, okay, I'm going to go into university. Again, another new platform that
Yeah.
nobody knows me. And sometimes I'm just like, okay, I have to push myself out there because
you were kind of forced into situations, or not forced, but like pushed into situations where you were like having to introduce yourself again and again, kind of.
exactly.
Yeah.
And with that, so a lot of people know that, or no, sorry, not a lot of people know. that I moved to Iraq
Yeah.
also for 2 years. When I moved there, I was in high school, and I remember at the time, I didn't make any friends for like a good 3 months. You guys don't know this. And I would literally sit at lunch alone, be that little loner kid. But then slowly, I taught myself to push myself out of my boundaries and to put myself out there and to talk and say hi, how are you, and to sit down with other people that I've never met or never had a conversation with. And then I think when I came here, that was even a bigger step in that same
Yeah.
situation.
But can I say honestly, يعني, knowing you for this many years and also knowing a lot of people that have met you,
Yeah.
yes, I remember the Shehlaa that started off.
Sorry, I just want to ask you, what was your first impression of me?
Definitely. You, as you guys remember, me and Hassan literally grew up. So I was just like examining, and I was just like, So here she is taking my best friend away. There goes all our nights when we're playing on our laptops and World
As
of
if that really
Warcraft
ended though.
or no, it didn't end. We carried it. Poor thing now watches us play video games. But so I think I remember first meeting you, and I thought to myself, okay, she's very reserved in a way. You kept to yourself.
Yeah.
And then I think it wasn't until I think it just happened gradually, where it just
Yeah.
kind of you came out of your shell.
Yeah.
Or not really. I don't want to even call it came out of your shell. You just you stepped out of your comfort zone. You kind of just
I think
showed
that's the
who
thing
you
with
were.
me is once I'm comfortable with you, then I'll slowly start showing you.
Yeah, I
Like-
don't think I think she got more comfortable actually.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But by allowing herself to be herself.
Yeah.
But do you
And
think that coming out of your comfort zone in a lot of ways kind of, I don't know, ends on a good note or not so much?
I'd say for the most part.
For the most,
yes.
yeah, I agree. For the most
yourself.
part, yeah. I've like even this as a podcast. Never in my wildest dream would I have thought, hey, I'm gonna actually, especially looking back to my own thoughts and my own critique. Again, going back to that topic, I would always, the biggest thing for me was my voice.
Yeah.
And because you guys know this about me, whenever I'm like super shy or I'm
Yeah.
super scared, I go like in that little raspy voice.
Yeah.
So the idea that I'm sitting here and doing a podcast, even this, is also a big step out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I
And-
think with that, I think we're all. This is definitely out of. All
And
of
like
our
even when
comfort zones.
when the episode aired, I remember as if it's like years ago. No, but like yeah,
Back in
I was like, I was trying not to get too excited, and I was trying not to get too invested in the idea of doing
Yeah.
a podcast because I'm like, people are gonna critique me.
Yeah.
People are gonna say, oh, look at her voice, or oh, she said
But then
this.
look at you now.
Yes.
Something that I wanted to mention about stepping outside your comfort zone for me, besides the fact that I've never done a podcast, but it's funny I'm gonna say this, but I am actually more reserved than people think. I am very available on social media, but I definitely don't reveal all on social media. If
Yeah.
that makes sense. There's literally a complete side of my life that I keep to myself, especially when it comes to my loved ones, because I feel like that's something that's very personal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's healthy. I don't think
There should be a
we're-
line.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
shouldn't
Yeah.
share everything on social media.
And I think for me, stepping out of my comfort zone would be being more vulnerable or sharing more. So definitely, this podcast was kind of like how
Yeah.
we kind of overcame that. Now all
Yeah.
that's left is getting Shehlaa to ride roller coasters with us because she
Never, guys.
she refuses.
Never.
But I just want to touch on something that you said, Shehlaa, that actually triggered something in my head. If you think about it, so when you were a kid, you moved to Canada, from Iraq to Canada.
I was 2 years old.
Yeah. So and then from there, many years later, you moved back to Iraq, and then even within Iraq, you moved cities.
Yeah.
And then from there, you moved to Dubai.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, you've had to kind of adapt and adjust and introduce yourself and make new friends and get into a new environment over
Yeah.
and over again.
Yeah.
So it's not to go too deep and not to psychoanalyze you, but it just like it made me think like it's no wonder that you have this self-doubt and this questioning yourself is because you've had to do it so many
times.
so many times. But I think, I mean, I've seen you grow through the years that I've known you and through our marriage. So especially the past 2 years, I'd say you've really like come into your own. So I think if anything, it's shaped you to who you are, and it's
Yeah.
helped you form you as a person.
Definitely. I think I agree with that. I wasn't always going back to what you were just saying about going from country to country.
Yeah.
Looking back at it now, you're right. I think that's where the voice in my head comes from, is because in Canada, of course, you're not taken as a full Canadian because, hey, again,
You're Middle Eastern.
exactly, I'm Middle Eastern in Canada. And then coming to Iraq, I remember it was more or less, you're not fully Iraqi,
Yeah,
you
you're
know?
an outsider.
Oh, you grew up in
or
Canada.
you're westernized.
Speaking of, one of the biggest frustrations and pet peeves I have, and I think we all share, is when someone comes up to you and says, "But you are Arab. Why are you not speaking Arabic?"
Oh
my
my
God.
God.
Yes. This is
I can
actually-
I can feel the eye rolls of all the listeners out there.
It's actually very poignant that you bring this up. This is exactly the topic that I wanted to talk about today. Actually, if you guys follow there's a blogger, I think, like a fashion blogger. Her name is Asia.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She's I think Kuwaiti American.
Yes.
I'm not too familiar.
No, I think she's Kuwaiti. Yeah.
Well,
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, but anyways,
I usually
guys can let
know
us
this
know.
information, but I don't have my Instagram on
she's
me.
pretty cool. I think I'm pretty sure I follow her on Instagram, and this is how I saw this video. She was doing an interview, or like she was having a conversation with another Arab fashion blogger.
Okay.
And they were talking about how they, English is technically their first language because they're
Yeah.
more comfortable expressing themselves in English, and they get a lot of criticism for speaking English and not Arabic. And I think for me, I grew up and I learned English before I learned Arabic, and I think that was just a symptom of the times. I remember being pretty much in school, one of the few that spoke English well, and could carry a conversation fully in English. As a result, of course, my Arabic suffered, and to this day my Arabic is not as good as my English. And even when I think in both languages for sure, but definitely my go-to is when it comes to conversing is English. And the reason for that is not because I'm not proud of being an Arab, or I don't like the Arabic language. I think it's because society really, and I don't see this in any other culture, but when you make a mistake speaking Arabic, you are made fun of so hard that it really puts you off from trying, because I'm scared to say something because then I'm gonna sound stupid, or it's gonna come off, or they'll know that my Arabic is not
You're
strong.
judged if you do, and you're judged if you
Yeah.
don't.
Exactly. And I know we're probably going to hear about this in the comments, because everyone has an opinion about this.
It's not about the opinions. It's you can have your fair opinions, and it's fine. You whether you agree, whether you don't. It's not about the pride. So for example, for myself, I, like Hassan, when I grew up, I'm the eldest of 4 boys. So I was told, to go to a specific kindergarten, nursery, school, high school, college, and the primary language in most of these places were English, and that's how I conversed, because we came from an international body. I had people that were Australian in my class. I had people from all over the world, Italian, and then obviously going to university in the UK, that was the same thing. So I got very comfortable with the English, and yes, my Arabic did suffer. I was very worried when I came back to the country when I was 21 and I took my first job. I was very worried about the Arabic barrier, but then alhamdulillah, I was becoming self-taught because I was hanging around other people that were from here, and through conversing I was comfortable. comfortable with Arabic, but I do make mistakes. But the reason that it hindered me was mainly because
When people would point out the
people would
mistakes?
point out, and not just no, it's not just pointing out. It's like, literally the kid at the playground that they just
Yeah.
like point and
Yeah.
laugh, and that's the discouraging thing, which I feel like it defies the purpose. You don't want someone to obviously put you down when you're being vulnerable. I didn't have the same upbringing as many other people did around
Yeah.
around this region. Mine was different, yours was different, everyone else was different. So I that's something that I wanted to point out. And another thing, I don't like it when they say it's a pride thing, about why you're not
It's absolutely
proud
not.
about it.
Yeah, because, and also if you think about it, at the time I feel like there was a lot of emphasis on learning English.
Yeah.
Because they wanted the Arabs to, integrate with Western society, especially in Dubai, where you have so many expats
Yeah.
and foreigners. It's important to be able to speak the same language.
Yeah.
And it's obviously much easier for us to learn English than it is for other people to learn Arabic.
There was just an influx of Western
Yeah.
culture that came in at the time that we were
Yeah.
growing up, and so that was the main cause. But then, for me, I am stubborn. So when
Yeah.
people, the first thing that they do is when they see you, and I am proud. I'm a proud Arab. I'm a proud Emirati, and I love everything it is that comes with being an Emirati and being an Arab. But the one thing that I wish
Struggle?
I could change
Okay.
is the idea of feeling guilty based on a language. Like literally, it is a language. It doesn't make me any less of a person than
Yeah.
anyone
Yeah.
else. I do my religious duties.
Yeah.
I do what is wajib. What is wajib and
What's expected of
What is
your,
expected.
your duties. basically.
yeah, okay, so I do my duties, and I and just that aspect of always having to mention that and bring people down
Yeah.
based on just because of a language, and
And
telling
having
you
to
you're not good
justify
enough.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't choose to be better in one language than
Than the
another.
other.
And when people are gonna say, "Why don't we try?" Tara, we do try. By the way, it's not that we don't speak. We can speak, and
And
we
we
have
do
spoken, and we do speak in
yeah, to each
Arabic.
other.
But the reason why the podcast, coming back to it, is in English is because we want to reach the entire world. We want to connect with people in the entire world. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say this, to burst someone's bubble out there, but the way to do that now is English.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we are learning Mandarin at the same time, because probably in 5 to 10 years we're going to have to do a podcast in Mandarin.
But no, on that note, guys, because growing up in Canada, I also dealt with that. I feel is always. I remember growing up is the rule was inside the house you talk Arabic, outside the house you talk English,
Yeah.
and so that way there was a nice balance.
Yeah.
And then coming here, I actually have to say is that, or coming to this region, I dealt with, oh, your Arabic is not good enough. I'm like, but it's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Like, I know Arabic enough, but then, like, if I use some terms that aren't used as often, or if I use a term that, I don't know, I picked up in Canada instead, or sometimes when I'm saying, like, an entire sentence, I'll change one word. I don't
Yeah.
know. I know I do it. I don't know if you do it. Hassan does it a lot. But yeah, when I change like a term or something, I get judged on that, and then I'm like, but again, it's me talking and me trying, and then so if I try, I'm gonna be judged. But if I don't try, I'm also gonna be judged. So I think this is a lot of people can relate to the subject because, again, it's not only in this region. I feel like it's even for Arabs or Middle Easterns that are in the that
In
talk Arabic.
Western
Yeah.
countries.
I feel to tie up, actually, this actually ties up all the topics that we were discussing about today, because
Yeah.
if you think about it, it is that that expectations of people around, in especially in society,
Yeah.
that expect you to, for example, the topic that I was discussing about always running on 100.
Yeah.
It's because I feel like that's what I'm expected to do as the
Yeah.
eldest
Yeah.
son, and I have to run at 100. Otherwise, I am considered a failure. For yourself, for example, having that self doubt, whether in
Yeah.
terms of
Terms of
social
fitting in,
gathering,
yeah.
is basically the fear of being judged, and then Hassan mentioning, of course, the Arabic barrier. All of these are basically what we're trying to say is you're judged if you do, you're judged if you don't, and it's the reason why a lot of people don't come out of their comfort
Yeah.
zones, which, by the way, I have to say, is not everywhere. You know, when I went and studied in the United Kingdom, no one asked me if I was the eldest. No one even
Yeah.
asked me what my family name was. Nobody asked me what my earnings were. They just met me as who I was.
They took you for who you were.
Exactly. So I just think that a little takeaway I would say is that I just wish that, people were more understanding and supportive, that it's not, the world isn't in black and white. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
maybe with social media and maybe the fact that we're getting more exposed to worldwide voices,
Yeah.
that we're distancing ourselves from that. But I really it would be sad to know that the next generation grows up in a place where they're going, with the fear of being judged,
being
of
judged.
of being themselves.
Yeah, I hope not. I hope that people will see more and more that the way to get someone to see your point of view or to improve is not through negative criticism, but through positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
And I think it's really up to us and our generation, especially those who have felt that others have treated them unfairly or misjudged them, to go forward and not repeat the same thing,
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
be more open-minded and understanding of others, and to just be kind.
Yeah, I think people. There's a saying that I read once, and they said, "Oh, I wonder when they will stop judging us." But we
Yeah.
have become they. We are the society. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It's
So
our
it's our responsibility to
Yeah.
kind of change it for the next generation. So I just hope people wake up.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, guys, we're going to wrap up now. Thank you for tuning in. And let us know what you guys think about this episode.
And don't forget that you can always interact with us either by email at letsallscream.podcast@gmail.com, or on Instagram, that's at Let's All Scream. And we also have a Facebook page if you're on Facebook.
So stay tuned, specifically on our Instagram, where we're going to ask you a few questions about what topics you'd like to discuss, and some ways that we can connect, and suggestions about what we could do better, or if you guys have any insider tips that you can share with us about the podcast world. Or
Yeah, we definitely want this to be a two-way conversation.
Yeah, so let
So-
us know what you guys think.
Exactly. So thank you again for listening in, and we hope to see
Yeah.
you next week.
Take care.
Bye.